the highest amount of embodied energy in a building comes from the production of new materials. That using recycled materials, you can't get any lower embodied energy, hands down. Let's try and come up with all sorts of fandangled new materials full of poly blah 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 to fit into da 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 da. That's all great, but the cost to actually make them is I don't know, maybe that's just a bonus at the tail end of what we do. If you can somehow find a way to make salvage sexy, you could sell it. They're fire hydrants. Turned out well.
What you can do with recycled materials. And how beautiful does it look?
Yeah, it's warm and it's got character.
So you've got north-facing double glazed windows?
Yeah. Yep, so that's from our recycled glass. But we built that.
But here we have a bowling alley kitchen benchtop.
You know, you're right. It's made of rock maple, which is the hardest timber in the world. It was from Canada. But all the bowling alleys, the middle section was built out of rock maple because it is so hard. There's none left. Houses are from a Melbourne engineering company called Johns & Waygood, who are actually in the 1920s onward were one of the kind of, main players in steel engineering, fabrication. Those trusses came out of a building which was taken down for the new Metro Tunnel project. We are not demolishers. We don't have a team of demolition contractors. We work with demolition contractors who are sensitive to that. 2 or 3, 4 maybe. We're getting more companies calling us. Be a salvage yard in every city, every town. We can't cope with all the stuff. And we could pull 6 acres of gear out of Melbourne every week if we had the manpower, but we don't. So we are, at the moment, we are just what we are. We have to be middle people. We work with contractors, we buy material from, demo contractors, and local people, even better. Locals bring in there. But we have to assess it. And it would be really great if there was a tip shop, so that could be the next stage. We can't there's no point us taking, with the labour costs, we have to sort of have we've got to have a bit of everything. Like we have toilets and sinks and that kind of thing, but things are going to just pile up for the next 5 years. And then we just...
You can't do that.
Yeah, so that should be really a sort of council level waste management issue, I think. And also, we are, like you say, you couldn't afford a piece of bowling alley because it's expensive. But if you got someone to laminate all those pieces together, it would probably cost the same thing. But there needs to be a different price point accessible for people that, we all, 30, 40 years ago, people were building houses on the cheap because the stuff was cheap. But, there needs to be resources available to supplement that because it's a labour-intensive industry, which is why it's become a landfill issue. The higher the labour cost, the cheaper the landfill cost, landfill always wins out. But now we're getting to this tipping point, maybe to train young people to learn how to deconstruct, de-nail timber. Use the appropriate tools. When you've got an old house, how do you lift the floor without breaking all the chunks on it? That sort of thing. But nobody's training people at TAFE. There's no such industry. So there's a group of us with these couple of demolishers we work with. We're actually trying to set up a group. If TAFE run a Cert 3 in carpentry, maybe one of their modules could be using secondhand materials for building. No point having salvage yards if you haven't got the industry at the other end pulling them out. We'd love mainstream builders we're more and more getting them because their customers are sending them here. But I would love for there to be more of a linked cycle, and it was exciting because yesterday someone from council came to me to say, we want to do this but we don't have the skills, we need help. We've got funding, now we want to make this happen. And that was the most exciting thing I've heard for, the whole 20 years of working. Lots of great movements to try and say how exciting it is. And people love it when they see it in glossy magazines, photographed beautifully with a light on it. but in its raw form, they just can't get their head around how to. It's retraining thinking. It's a cephalopod, my grandfather's etching. So cephalopods are one of the greatest adapters to warming seas. So if you want to eat sustainable seafood, eat squid. So we thought that was quite an appropriate symbol.
If it was a old-growth forest, people would be chaining themselves to it, but it's really difficult industry.